and welcome back to Key Dialogues. I'm Dr. KK. This week, I'd like us to think about the images of the white goddess and the black beast. Now, maybe you're not familiar with these images as I'm describing them. I'd like to drop into your psyche the vision of LeBron James and Giselle as they grace the 2008 cover of Vogue. Now let's think again about our anchor. Our anchor is 1865. In 1865, the bells begin to ring for freedom for those people of African descent. And let's think about some things that were happening before then. Before 1865, we want to know that in 1441, the transatlantic slave trade began with the Portuguese and their travels on the western coast of Africa. In 1603, right, 1603, this is before the first enslaved Africans have hit Jamestown in 1619. In 1603, Shakespeare, who's a friend of Ben Jonson, who wrote that other play I talked to you about, The Mask of Blackness, he writes a play too. And his play is called Othello. Now, you may or may not be familiar with Othello, but in a nutshell, the play is all about a Moor, or a black African man, and his love affair with Desdemona, or a white woman. And that's as far as we really need to go in this discussion about that. In 1915, American cinema, which is akin to the theater, of course, this is theater on film, emerges with an epic film called Birth of a Nation. And in this film, Birth of a Nation, the KKK is positioned as the hero who's bound to save the white woman from the bestial, hypersexual intentions of the savage black man. And that is where our conversation begins. We believe that these ideas created during enslavement are very old and archaic. They still live right now today. We can really think of some contemporary kinds of engagements which have unfolded in front of our very eyes to only know that this stereotype or this myth of the coveted white woman and the bestial, violent black man. And let's just think about what we've discussed prior, that there are three elements which we must use for the niggering process. First, there has to be the threat of physical violence. Second, there's a coveting of white women. And third, there's a nature or actions that are associated with physical characteristics. Right? And now let's think about the LeBron James cover with Giselle, which many know to be reminiscent of a World War II poster which shows a savage, beast, a King Kong-like feature, wielding a club, and also a white woman. Now, on first glance, you might suspect that the gorilla is representative of a black man, and it is representative of a black man. But in this case, the black man is German. Germans were the enemy. Germans were the enemy. So I want you to think about this as you also grapple with this idea that race is not static, that race is something that's movable, and that whomever is in the dominant position can cast or project otherness to anyone who is standing below them in the hierarchy. So I want you to think about the Times cover with O.J. Simpson's face as he was going to trial over the murder of his late wife, Nicole Simpson. I want you to think about Kobe Bryant and his interactions as he was accused of rape. And then when the woman was investigated, it was discovered that in her underpants there was evidence of her having sex with more than one man. Only neither of those men were Kobe Bryant. I want you to think about Latasha Harlins, who was shot in a Los Angeles liquor store over a bottle of orange juice. And I want you to think about this violence, right, that is projected onto the black body. And I want you to think about how it might be intensified as projected onto the black man when held in tandem with this niggering process. Right? I want you to think about Emmett Till, who really begins to come to the forefront of my cognition as I think about the fact that his accuser, Carolyn Bryant, who is still alive today, has recently admitted to a historian that she fabricated the story of this 15-year-old whistling at her and luring at her. And then you have to ask yourself, why? In the United States, the twin myths of black beast and white goddess and the social structure, we're talking about this hierarchy that places white on top of black, has been severely focused on the two, right? So that in the process of creating race, we also have to focus on niggering the other. The ideal of coveting held between white women and black men was upheld by force, and a use of force after which freedom and reconstruction turned into violence. And that violence often was perpetuated not only by police, legal kinds of operants, but it was also conducted by illegal operants. In 1884 and 1900, more than 2,500 blacks were lynched. While the lynchings in themselves were perverse, and I want us to think about the fact that people would come together in communities to hang and murder people, that is perverse. The lynchings were often coupled with an additional manifestation of perversity. According to Gunnar Myrdal, the fact that lynching a black man was often coupled with castration symbolized a deep, deep perversity. So not only are you killing, hanging, lynching this black man who has attached to his physical body the threat of violence, but you are also castrating him. And there are many, many historical reports that will show in the South it was very common to walk by the window of a butcher's shop and see there nicely displayed in the window the testicles and the penis of the latest lynched black man. But we do know for sure that in this emergence of the stereotype of the hypersexual, violent black man who can be characterized by the deepest tone of his skin, the darker that he is, the more violent, the more savage, the more hypersexual, the more he covets the white woman, we can also see why the narrative would begin to bubble up in white women that they are afraid of black men. But are they really afraid is the question. In fact, some historians assert that white women are not necessarily afraid of black men, but they feel misused, abused, disrespected, and abandoned by a white man in power who during enslavement consistently found himself in my mother's bedroom. Poor Thomas Jefferson. We already know about him and Sally Hemings. We already know that our nation's third president had a baby mama with 6 children that he did not even want to free on his deathbed. And so we really have to begin questioning this relationship between the white goddess and the black beast. And we have to begin asking ourselves, is this relationship real? Or is this relationship merely a construction? I want us to keep thinking about race. I want us to keep digging into these ideas and these concepts and these images so that we may do the work of deconstructing what we think is our reality. This has been Key Dialogues with Dr. KK. Deuces.